Hey everyone, today we will solve the Leetcode problem to find the number of arithmetic triplets, and in this problem we have been given a zero indexed array of numbers or integers, and all the numbers are in strictly increasing order, which means that they are in ascending order and there will be no duplicates because they are in increasing order, strictly increasing order. And a triplet is essentially three numbers. And what's the condition here? So we have been given a number diff for the triplet. The difference between the adjacent numbers in a triplet must be equal to diff. So for example, let's look at this array here. And let's go to the drawing. We've got the array here and we've been given diff of 3. So we need to find numbers which have a difference of 3. So the second number minus the first number equals 3, and the third number in the triplet minus the second number in the triplet is equal to 3 as well. So let's have a look and see what we've got here. The first number is 0, and if we wanted to find a number which is 3 plus 0, we'll end up with 3, but we can see that we don't have 3 in this array. So 0 can't form a triplet with any number. So let's cancel that one out. So 0 is out, and remember that we need to find the number of triplets. We don't have to return the triplets themselves. So let's go to the second number, which is 1. Now if we add 3 to 1, then we get 4, and we can see that 4 does exist in this array. Now if we have to form a triplet, we need 3 numbers. So let's add 3 to this 4 and we can get 7. So now we have 1, 4 and 7 each, and this forms our first triplet. So 7 minus 4 is 3, 4 minus 1 is also 3. So 1, 4 and 7 is our first triplet. And also remember that we are not allowed to have duplicate triplets in the result. So now let's go to the next number, which is 4. And if we add 3 to 4, so 4 plus diff equals 7, so 4 and 7. And then if we add 3 to 7, we get 10. So we need to check if 10 exists in this array now, and it does exist here. So 4, 7 and 10 is our next triplet. Now let's go to the next number, which is 6, and we can see that we don't have a 9 in this array, so 6 is straight away out. And at this point 7 and 10, there's only 2 numbers left, so we can't form a triplet. So the total number of triplets in this case is 2, and that is what we need to return in our solution. So the next thing we need to think about is the logic to find the triplets. So if you look at this array again, we can think of one solution, and that is if we start iterating through this array from start till the end, and for every number we can check what are the other 2 numbers we need to form a triplet. So for example, for 0 we need with the diff equals 3, we need 3, and we need, so 0 plus 3 is 3, and 3 plus 3 is 6, so we need 3 and 6. And now we need a mechanism to check if 3 and 6 occur in this array without iterating the array every time. So we need some sort of like a cache. So we could use a hash map to check if the number exists. So we would need to iterate the array once, populate the hash map with values which exist in this array. That's one option. And if we want to make it a bit faster, let's have a look at these constraints here. It's been given that the length of the array can go up till 200. So it's not going to be a big array. What we can do here is we can create a cache or a Boolean array, if you like to say, and initialize it with false for every position. And whenever we find, and for every number that we find in this input array, we'll set the value for that position in the cache to true. So let me explain a bit more what I mean. So for example, if we define a cache, which is a Boolean array of size, say 201, because they've given here 200 is the maximum. So let's be on the safe side, give it a size of 201. And now we can say that the cache at position 0, because the number 0 exists, equal to true. Similarly, the cache position or the index in the cache array at 1 will be true. So this will also be true. And similarly for 4, 6, 7 and 10, all these values will be true. And the rest of the array will have false. So for example, the number 20. So in the cache, the position 20 will have a false because the number 20 does not occur in our input array. So once we have this cache populated, we then simply iterate through our input array here. And as before, we see, okay, we've got a 0 and we need 3 and 6. We simply check if our 3 and 6 are less than 200, because if you go in this constraints here, the constraints on the value itself is 200. Max value is 200. So now we simply check if the cache of 3 is true and cache of 6 is true, and 3 is, we don't want to kind of cause an array index out of bounds exception. So first thing we check is is 3 less than the size of the cache, and is 6 less than size of the cache. And if it is, then we check if the value in the cache is true. And if it's true, that means that we have the numbers which we can combine with the 0 to form a triplet. So in this case, it will be false because 3 doesn't exist in this array, neither does 6. So 0 can't form a triplet. When we go to the number 1, what numbers do we need to form a triplet? So 1 plus 3 is 4, and 4 plus 3 is 7. Now, if we look up in our cache, we will see we have got these 4 and 7, and therefore our condition will be successful, and we've got our first triplet. Now, we may find more triplets, so what we need to do is we'll initialize a variable called triplets at the very start here. It's just an integer, triplets equal to 0, and every time our condition is fulfilled, we'll just increment triplets. It's like that. We'll do the coding, so you'll see it nicely formatted, but I'm just explaining the logic here. So yeah, so that's our first triplet, and then we go to the next value, which is 4. And for 4, what do we need? We need the number 7, because 4 plus 3 is 7. What's the next number we need? 7 plus 3 is 10. So we need 4, 7. For 4, we need 7 and 10. And we can see that 7 and 10 exist in this cache, So we'll again find another triplet and we'll do the triplets plus plus. So at this point our triplets, we have found 2 triplets here, and as we saw earlier there are no more triplets. So we can use this logic to iterate through this array once to populate the cache and another time to find the triplets, and this is quite efficient. You can use a hash map, that's fine as well. In fact, if this constraint wasn't there, where there's a limit on the length of the nums array, then a hash map is better, because you don't know how long or how large this nums array might get. So let's look at the code and see how it works. Okay, so here I am in Leetcode editor, and let's just make the editor a little bit big. So let's first of all define our cache, which will contain the value true if the number exists in the input array. So it will be a boolean. Now we need to populate the cache. So for every number which exists in the input array, that number is the index into the cache. So for example, cache of 4 will be true, cache of 6 will be true, and so on and so forth. So let's just take a variable for the length of the array. And now let's populate the cache. Now in Java, when we define a Boolean array, all the values will be false by default, and for all the values in the input array, we are setting the value in the cache to true. Now let's define our triplets variable. Initialize it to 0 because we haven't found any triplet yet. And now let's iterate through our input array and check if we can form triplets for the current number. So if you remember, I have drawn here the 2 numbers required to form triplet. Let's just call them n1 and n2. And the first number will be the current number, that is nums of I plus diff, and the second number will be the current number, that is nums of I plus 2 times diff. Now we need to check if these 2 numbers exist in the cache. Now one thing to note is we can get an array index out of bounds exception here. If we are checking for a number like 6, for example, right, and 6 plus 3 is 9, and let's say if it was a very large array of 200 characters, then we can easily get an array index out of bounds exception if let's say the last number is say 197, and the diff is say 10, and 197 plus 10 becomes 207, which is larger than the size of our cache. So we need to check that N1 and N2 are less than the size of the cache. And now we just return the triplets after the for loop. Let's see if it has got any compilation problems or any other problems. Okay, that looks fine. So let's just use the test cases from here. Okay, that looks good. Thank you so much for watching, and please do remember to like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.